In this video, you will learn how to use sum, sumif, and sumifs formulas in Excel. Sum is used to add any two or more numbers in a range of cells in Excel. Sumif is used to add a range of cells based on a certain criteria. And sumifs is a better version of sumif and is used to add a range of cells based on multiple criteria. Let's start with learning to use sum function. We'll use our learning to build on to sumif and sumifs. Any formula in Excel starts with an equal sign. So I'm going to start with equal, and if for example I have to add two numbers, say 3 and 10, all I need to do is type in 3 plus 10 and I would get the sum, which is equal to 13. Now if I have 3 and 10 in two different cells and I want to sum them, I can also use this formula where I would say equal and I would go to this first cell and then I add plus and then go to the next cell and hit enter, and I would get my result as 13. I have a lot of different values in my revenue column, and if I start trying to add them one by one by using equal to, go to the first cell and then have a plus sign, go to the next cell, add a plus sign, go to the next one, and keep on doing that, it would take me a long time. In order to have an easy solution, Excel gives you the sum formula. So I can use sum, so I can type in sum and open a parenthesis, and I can just select all the different cells that I want to be added together. So I can go here, and if I want to add all of these cells together, all I need to do is really select all of them by moving my cursor down and selecting them all together. So I have my sum, open parenthesis, and the cell range that I want to be added, which is C2 through C21. And if you have seen my video on Excel for beginners, I have explained how cell ranges are named, and it is essentially the first cell all the way to last cell here, C2 through C21. And I'm going to close the parenthesis, and my formula is ready to evaluate the sum. And I would hit enter, and here I am. I got the sum of all these numbers together is equal to $25,375. Another quick tip on Excel, if you actually go here and you start kind of selecting multiple cells together, here in the bottom corner you actually get to see the average of the selected cells, count of cells, and the sum of these cells. So here I have selected 7 different cells, and the sum of values in these 7 cells is equal to $9,300, and the average is $1,329. So if I go back and if I select all of these 20 cells, what do I see here in sum? It is $25,375, which is what I have here using my sum formula. I want to show it here, and if I have, let's say, a total cell and I want to add all of these cells together, I can type in sum and open parenthesis, select all of these cells and close, and I hit enter and I get my sum. And I can even format it slightly differently, so put all of these in bold, maybe even add a color to highlight my sum. Now what if I do not want to add the revenue for all the customers, but I am only interested in knowing what is the revenue for my customers who are in Toronto or who are in London? That is when I use my sumif formula. Sumif is used to add a range of cell based on a certain criteria. And what is my criteria here? So my criteria here is that city is equal to, let's start with Toronto. So I want to see what is the sum of revenue from customers in Toronto. In this particular cell, let's start typing sum. And as I type sum, you can see that there are all these different options that come up. I want to use sumif. So I'm going to type sumif, or I can just click here and select sumif and then open parenthesis. Now, if you see, there are 3 different parameters that are required to use sumif. There's a range, there's a criteria, and there's a sum range. Sum range is essentially the range of cells that you want to be added. Criteria is the criteria based on which you want to differentiate certain cells, and the range is where the criteria lives. So my range here is the column city. So I'm going to select this range, and then what is the criteria? I only want to add cells for customers who live in Toronto. So my criteria here is Toronto. And notice that I have put Toronto within these double quotation marks. Double quotes are used in Excel to tell Excel that what is inside is a text, and that is how it differentiates text from numbers. So if, for example, I do not have Toronto in double quotes and I just type in Toronto and I type in the sum range, and this is my sum range here, and close parenthesis, hit enter, I get 0 because Excel doesn't know that it has to look for text. So I'm going to go back here and I would put Toronto in double quotes and hit enter again, and you see that now Excel understands that Toronto is text and I am trying to find the sum of revenue for customers who live in Toronto. Another way to do that is, if I know that my criteria is sum equals Toronto and say Toronto is another cell here, what I can also do is in my formula I can type in sumif, I can choose my range and the range is here, and my criteria is the city, so I can even use a cell here and then I can select my sum range. So using a cell as a reference for your criteria is usually a lot easier than remembering to put your criteria in double quotes if it is a text. So this becomes a lot more easier, and I'm going to hit enter, and you see that I'm getting the same result, which is $3,400. And if I want both of these to be in dollar, I'm going to add dollar sign and I would remove my decimal digits. So there you go. Now you know how to use sumif. Let's move on to sumifs. As I mentioned, sumifs is a better version of sumif where you can actually use multiple criterias. So let's first define the criterias. Let's say now I know that the revenue generated from customers living in Toronto is $3,400, but now I'm interested in learning how much of this revenue is coming from male customers versus female customers. In my first criteria, I'm going to have two different sums that I want to see. In my first one, I want to use city as Toronto. For the second one also, city as Toronto, but gender for the first one is M, and for the next one is F, which is male and female. So let's use sumifs, find the revenue generated in Toronto from customers who are males. Okay, so what I need to do is I would start with an equal to sign, type in sumif s this time, open my parenthesis, and this time you would see that the formula is slightly different. Rather than starting from range, it starts with sum range. So it wants to know what is the range of cells that we are actually interested in adding. And it is this column C here. So I'm going to select these cells, and then I need to give it my criteria range 1. This is similar to the range in the previous example of sumif. So what is the range of cells where my first criteria lives? And what is my first criteria? It is the city, and here it lives in column B here. So I'm going to select this, and then it says what is the criteria, and this time I would give it a reference of a cell. So I would go and click on this particular cell, and now it is asking what is criteria range 2. So where does the second criteria live? My second criteria is gender, and it lives in column D. So I'm going to select this range of cells where it stays, and I would refer the cell with the criteria, which is M. So I would refer the cell, and that's it. I'm going to close the parenthesis and hit enter, and you can see that $750 of the $3,400 are coming from male customers living in Toronto. Now I want to do the same thing for female customers. So I would go back, type in equal use sumifs function, give it the sum range. Sum range is in column C. I'll give it the criteria range 1, which is my city. I would refer the cell here for city. I would give it the criteria range 2, which is the gender, and would refer back to the criteria, which is my cell I16. Close parenthesis and hit enter. And now I've got $2,650. And just to verify, because we know that overall revenue from Toronto is $3,400, I want to do a sum to check whether the addition of these two revenues from male customers in Toronto and female customers in Toronto actually equal the total sum. So in this particular cell, I'm going to verify, and what I can do is start with an equal sign, go to my first cell, and then select my second cell and hit enter. And it is $3,400, which is exactly the sum for Toronto. So now you know how to use sum, sumif, and sumifs formulas in Excel. If you have any questions or specific things that you would want me to cover in my future videos, please don't forget to comment. If you like the video, do subscribe to my channel for similar content. Keep learning. Learning is fun.